Hello and welcome back to Astrocartography with Helena, where we talk all about astrocartography and the energy of place. And where in the world are your best places? Where in the world can you unlock your stories? In this video, we're going to be talking about Taylor Swift and her astrocartography. What does her map of the world say about her experiences? In this video, we're going to be talking about two charts because, truth be told, we don't have her accurate birth time. We can't make a proper analysis unless we have her birth time. But we're going to be talking about the two charts, the two birth times that we do have for her, whether or not she's a Capricorn rising or a Scorpio rising. I would love to hear from you down below in the comments what you think she is. If you've studied her transits or understood her Saturn return or understanding just her and her energy, what do you think she is, a Capricorn or a Scorpio rising? I'd be really curious to hear from you down below in the comments, and we're just going to get started and analyze both of these charts in relation to places in the world that she's been and studying her astrocartography map of the world. Now, if you have any celebrities that you'd like me to make a video on, politicians, historical figures, authors, you'd like me to look at next here on this channel, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. There's a lot of people not watching these videos anymore, and truth be told, it's because you haven't subscribed. If you love astrocartography, astrology, and personal development, you will love this channel and check out my podcast, Cosmic Compass with Helena Woods. I go all in depth on the podcast there. Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's jump right in and study Taylor Swift's astrocartography map. Are you ready?
As far as we know, we have two birth times for Taylor Swift. One biography says 5:17 a.m., which that would make Taylor Swift a Scorpio rising with her ruler on the ascendant, which she definitely physically appears like a Scorpio rising, and the first house does rule your physical body and what you look like. She's got that powerful magnetism. She has those eyes that look like they're looking right through you. She has that powerful, passionate lens. Mars on the ascendant gives someone great power, stamina, and someone who is a hero. And look at that strength in Scorpio. She's definitely, you know, a strategic thinker, strategic planner with Mars and Scorpio, thinking 10 steps ahead of everyone else. She's definitely the true mastermind. And this is, Mars on the ascendant. This is coloring her identity and who she is and how she thinks, how she operates, right? We also have Mercury in Capricorn too, which is how she thinks. But this is really important when we're looking at, someone and who a person is that first house is the most important part of the chart because it rules the person themselves. All the other houses in a birth chart show the areas of life, but the first house is the person, the native. And with her ascendant at 25 degrees Scorpio, with this 5:17 a.m. chart, Pluto being on her ascendant within a 10-degree conjunction, Pluto is someone who transforms a lot, someone whose identity shifts a lot, goes through a lot of eras. I will say this though, what is the con of this? I mean, Mars on the ascendant, especially with Scorpio, people either love or hate Scorpio risings. I know that's kind of a cliche, but it really is true. Scorpio risings have such a powerful energy about them. And with Pluto there and Mars especially, Mars on the ascendant in Scorpio can be someone that really repels a lot of people. I've seen this with a lot of celebrities. The people in the news that you hear about where people either love them or hate them, they usually have Mars on the ascendant or Mars in the first house, but especially when it's close to the ascendant. And so this is a possible indicator for her chart. Now, if she does indeed have this birth chart for the Scorpio rising 5:17 a.m. chart, this would mean that when she was going through her Saturn return, it was happening in her third house of communication, which would play a part in terms of the Scooter Braun dilemma, having to re-record her and make her masters, re-record her songs, take ownership over her writing, her creative communication, And that Saturn return would be part of that story. However, Saturn also rules her fourth house. Saturn also rules her fourth house of home and parents. So, this is the big challenge that she was going through with the Saturn return. However, I do want to point you to something else. Now, the thing that I don't really see though with this chart is she does have a Virgo midheaven, which she doesn't seem like a Virgo midheaven at all. The midheaven is really important in terms of a birth chart because it shows the public image that someone has. So we don't necessarily know her. So we can't necessarily say that she seems like a Scorpio rising. Sure, she physically has the features of a Scorpio rising, but we have never personally met her. And so we only see her from afar on a stage or on TV or in the news. That's the midheaven. If we haven't met a person and we're just seeing them as a fan, as a follower, from a public distance, we're seeing someone's midheaven. That's what we're seeing. And so we can see her from a far away lens as a Virgo with Virgo tone to her. And this just does not seem at all like Taylor Swift. Virgo is very grounded, practical, um, a bit critical, perfectionistic. So let's look at our Capricorn rising chart because this is what makes me think she's a Capricorn rising. First off, the first thing I notice is all of these planets in Capricorn and Cancer, these very initiatory self-starter cardinal energy of initiation, self-starter leadership, getting things off the ground, getting things moving. We get this Capricorn and Cancer stelliums in the first and seventh angular houses. And the angular houses are really important because they show a lot of active dynamic things happening in a person's life. Anytime we get a lot of activity in these houses, it's like, wow, this person has a lot of very important things going on in their life, especially in regards to the houses they represent. So, the first house of them, independence, themselves, and the seventh house of partnerships and relationships. That Jupiter of expansion, growth, and a lot of something that moves to the seventh house of relationships. So, having a lot of partners or having help with relationships. Now, one of the things that really makes me think that she's a Capricorn rising is because she is a Scorpio midheaven, which this is where that scorpionic energy comes into play. We see her as the fans, as seeing her from a faraway lens, she seems like a Scorpio. Everything from the whole Reputation era to her the way she dresses, the revenge energy, like the vengefulness that is so apparent, whether you like her or not. You have to admit that there's a lot of vengefulness in throughout her album since the beginning of time. Picture to Burn. I mean, since the beginning of her albums, way back when, she has always written about revenge. It's a huge part of her archetype of her storytelling, and it's clearly, an indicator of things that she thinks about. It's a very Scorpio thing. Scorpio rules revenge, and I think she seems like a Scorpio through and through. I am seeing her midheaven as someone who has not met her, who does not know her personally, who sees her from a faraway lens. She seems like a Scorpio midheaven. We, the public, see her in a Scorpio lens. Scorpios are also incredibly passionate. They're incredibly charismatic. Look at this. The 11th house rules her following and her fan base. Who are her followers? Who are her friends? Who are the people that support her, that follow her, that are fans of hers? Look at all this energy in Scorpio. What house it's in. Look at the Mars. Look at the Pluto. Look at Scorpio. What does this mean? Two words: cult following. Her following is intense. Her following, it's like a cult. Like, you say anything bad about Taylor Swift and be careful of getting doxxed because I mean, it's just wild how if you say one bad thing about her, her following will just just freaking attack you, and ruin your life, possibly. I mean, there are New York Times writers that can't put their names on the pieces they write in the New York Times. They have to remain anonymous out of fear of being publicly doxxed and being attacked in their personal life. Basically being ruined because of her following and her fan base. Very scorpionic. And that Mars and that Pluto is just it's volatile. It can be very, that's one thing to note. Now, the other thing is that this would make her a Capricorn rising. You know, Capricorn rising, she's got Mercury on the ascendant, very different energy. You know, Mercury on the ascendant, I always think of as a storyteller, a writer, someone who communicates a lot as part of their identity, but also physically, they can also be very tall, very thin. Mercury on the ascendant is also restless, like someone who's always fidgeting or restless or moving around a lot. That's something I see a lot with Mercury on the ascendant. She also has Uranus on the ascendant, which is, you know, being kind of a rebel, unconventional, non-traditional, doing things differently, can not want to follow the rules, you know, which can be very innovative. But you know, I gotta say, Capricorn on the ascendant, Capricorn risings, they do have a cold energy to them, unless they have something really warm in the first house, like Venus or Jupiter or the sun. Capricorn risings, all in all, seem very stoic upon meeting them and talking with them. They have kind of a straightforward, no nonsense, um, you know, energy, professionalism about them. Um, and Saturn's also there on her ascendant. So we're getting double Saturnian energy in her vibe, in her look, in her identity, in how she looks physically. Take that with what you will. Also, if we look at the Scooter Braun, you know, recording the Masters, going through her Saturn return, this was happening in her first house of her identity, which definitely makes sense with that whole issue that happened. I mean, taking ownership of your life, taking ownership and authority over what you've done, your life. This is such a breaking free or being restricted or confined physically. Like, think Britney Spears, for instance, when Britney Spears was in her conservatorship. That's so Saturn in the first house. That's so like being trapped, being confined, being restricted. Literally, you're forced to step into maturity, adulthood or maturity or authority in your life. And this is her taking back her power and stepping into her purpose and her power. It's very much Saturn in the first return. But also notice that Saturn also rules over her second house of money and income. So the money that she makes. How does she make money? You know, she decided to own her masters to make more money. I'm sure there was a monetary reason for this. She's also been down on Spotify about money. Like, money is a big thing with her. She's got Venus in the second house, so, and the North nodes. There's definitely like, I value security, comfort, and making my own money. There's a lot of like going in that direction in life and wanting that. And, you know, the North Node is obsession and what's insatiable, what you can't have enough of. It's what you want, earning income. And so when she was going through that Saturn return, it was not only influencing herself and her identity, but also her second house of money. Now, here's another reason why I think Taylor Swift is a Capricorn rising. It is because strictly her zodiacal releasing. Look at her zodiacal releasing. She's in a major peak period from 2009 to 2034. This is a major peak, by the way. This is a major peak period. Her lot of fortunes in Cancer, I mean, you can't get more major than this. And if you want to learn about this, take my Trust Your Timeline course. We have a live course that'll be happening this August, and I'll announce when the course is live. If you want to join our group calls on Zoom, you can come up on the hot seat and I'll go over your chart and your timing and answer any questions that you have. Be sure to get on my list, my wait list. I'll include a link down below so you can get notified when the doors will open for the August live round. But look at this. Look how she has a major peak period from age 19, almost 20, to about 44. I mean, let's also take this a little step further, shall we? Look at this. Summer of 2023, right around the time of the Eras tour, which was everywhere. It was everywhere. The Eras tour was so huge for her. Look how she is in a major career peak. This is the 10th from fortune, the 10th from the lot of fortune, making Aries. This makes Aries major peak periods for her in her career. We're looking at a lot of spirit here. So, all her career and life direction. And look at this June 18 of 23 to September 10th of 24. She's in a major career peak. So really big deal. She's in a really, important time in her life. She's going to have another major peak that's going to be really, really big in 27 and 28, 2027 and 2028. So we can see that this is going to be a huge peak for her. Wow, I wonder what she's going to be doing then. And this is pointing back to some things that were happening back in 2017, 2018, and 2019, which would have been around the Scooter Braun incident and the Reputation era. Was all happened around the beginning of Reputation and then re-recording her masters. So there's a through line or a thread that's linking the big up level, the big loosening of the bond on a major peak period in 27, 28 that's going back to what was happening back then. So, I mean, this is what sold me for why I think she is a Capricorn rising of the two birth times that we have based on biographies that were written about her. Um, these are the two options. And based on the zodiac releasing, the Saturn return, and the fact that she is a Scorpio midheaven, makes me think that she is a Capricorn rising. Now, let's take this a step further. Let's look at her astrocartography. Are you ready? Here is Taylor Swift's astrocartography map for the 5:17 a.m. Scorpio rising chart. One of the first things I wanted to note was Nashville, Rhode Island, as she has had a house in Rhode Island when she was dating Connor Kennedy back in the day, if you recall. I loved that era. Such a fun era of Taylor Swift. But we also want to look at LA and also London. London is a huge part of her story so far in her life. Now, do keep in mind that astrocartography maps are for your entire life. So if a place or a story hasn't activated yet, it doesn't mean it won't activate 10 years from now when you go on that trip, or there's someone in your life that comes from that descendant line, and your best friend that you meet 10 years later is from that country, or you meet the love of your life 5 years from now and your partner is from that state. You don't know all of the stories of places until you've lived your entire life. This is a permanent map of your entire life. So Taylor Swift's very young. And so a lot of these places in her life have not even been activated for her yet. And so that's something to keep in mind. Also, the other thing to keep in mind, we don't know her life. We don't know her story. We don't know a lot of her personal things, but we, as public viewers, we can see storylines. So let's look at the 5:17 a.m. map. So first thing I notice is that she has Mars rising over here, Mars on the ascendant over on the East Coast. This can be a tension-filled place for her, but also a place of a lot of planning, strategy with that Mars and Scorpio. This is a place where she can get a lot of work done, but also encounter conflicts. She also has Pluto on the ascendant in the middle of the country, close to Kansas City, Missouri. She's currently dating Travis Kelce from the Kansas City Chiefs. So, this is something to kind of note. Pluto on the ascendant, very powerful, transformative, can be eerie, an eerie place or just an intense place for her. This is a little bit more intense and a little bit serious than what I would expect for what we've seen as public viewers. She also has a Venus IC line, which is a home line. This is a place that people love. I don't think she's ever mentioned the joy and love that she feels for Arizona or Utah, Idaho, or Montana. Who knows? Maybe we'll get an album at some point, or maybe she'll buy a house in Montana at some point and we'll find that she like grows old there in her, old lady years. I mean, that's a great retirement line to live on. One other place to note is she does have Mars on the midheaven, which is a big career place of ambition, action. This is a very entrepreneurial place, but also a place of a lot of hustle and success. This is a career point for her. Now, one thing I did want to note is look at this. She's got moon and the nodes, the lunar nodes and the moon On that Perrin, we've got a Perrin here, and it is technically within orb of London. We can see that London is 46 miles south of the moon lunar nodes Perrin. This is a place of important relationships, important community, important people in our life coming from here. Can be This can be a very karmic place for her, familiarity, a sense of knowing other people, or a sense of recognition or with people. And she was in a relationship with Joe Alwyn, I think her longest relationship yet. Very long suffering relationship, shall I note. Check out their relationship in the secret language of birthdays. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting to know. I think they're best for work and like creative collaboration, but they're extremely long suffering in terms of dragging things out. And I mean, it was a very long relationship, and it didn't seem like she was happy at the end of it. Who knows how long she had been suffering in that relationship? But that's just speculation and gossip, so just ignore that. But anyway, the moon nodes is 40, let's see, exactly 46 miles. So that does put it within orb of being 75 miles max is the orb of influence for these parents. So um that is interesting. That is very interesting to see. Now that Mars MC, it's very hustle, you know. I remember that she was getting severely canceled with the whole Kim Kardashian snake reputation era, and she kind of went undercover and kind of wanted a more private life, which seems a lot more like the 8:36 a.m. time frame, which puts her at a Capricorn rising. Now let's go back to the UK. In the UK, she's got Chiron in the IC. Very interesting. Saturn on the midheaven. So there is a sense of slow work, building foundations, longevity with career opportunities that happen here. But Saturn is challenging. Saturn is slow moving. Saturn is depression, delays, coldness, an invisible barrier, a sense of boundaries, a sense of a wall or something that's being closed off, resistance, anything that's being delayed that can happen on Saturn MC lines. They're places of hard work. And she also has Chiron on the IC, which this is a place of healing for her. The land, the area, the place can be very healing for her. Now, she doesn't have any parents. Oh, she does have a Ceres Chiron parent, but that is an asteroid. Ceres is an asteroid. It's not a traditional, planet, but it is 60 miles south of London, so that is technically within orb. Good for connecting with nature and being a place of healing for her. And when we look at the relocated chart for these areas, let's take a look at the relocated chart for London. We can see here that she has Chiron on the IC in the third house. I mean, I can't help but wonder because I do think this is her chart. I think she's a Capricorn rising. I'm just putting it out there. I think she's a Capricorn rising with Scorpio on the midheaven. Please let me know down below what you think she is. I'd be curious to hear your insights and what you've gathered based on her transits and her chart and all of the things. I'd love to learn and hear from you guys as well. But she has Chiron on the IC. Note she has Chiron on the IC in the third house. This is like, I think being in London brought up like childhood wounds in terms of students in school. The third house is your childhood education, your relationship to siblings, cousins, your voice, your communication, how you express yourself, as well as, peers in childhood and younger schooling. I can't help but wonder, and this is just speculation, if being in London was very healing for her and healing her childhood wounds with school and kids in school and bullying. And this, I remember she went out to London and stayed there kind of in privacy in a retreat right after she was canceled by Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. And I remember in the documentary, she mentioned that she was in like one of her lowest points in life where she just wanted to hide away from the world and be private. Getting this Capricorn Cancer stellium, moving it into the third and ninth house, is definitely not as a potent, active houses to have these stelliums in, and that that Chiron on the IC in the third house, relocated wise, definitely can bring up this is a place of healing for her, but also bringing up a lot of sensitivity and sensitive wounds and things like that. This is a Saturn Chiron opposition in her chart. This is why the lines are pulling up. The lines are showing what the chart is showing. The lines are showing what the relocated chart is showing. And so the Saturn on the midheaven opposing the Chiron on the IC, this can bring up, having to deal with pain, with difficulties, with something that one is karmically on a soul level here to learn and grow into. And I think this has a lot to do with stepping into her purpose, with healing that, healing wounds around upbringing and her childhood and her relationships with people. Third house is a very social, communicative house. And one other thing I do want to point out is let's look at her geodetic lines as well. Go to zodiac, geodetic. Look at this. She's got a love line going through the UK. Venus on the descendant, the Venus setting line. This is love. This is a lover. This is a partnership. Her longest relationship she's ever had with Joe Alwyn was here in the UK. Isn't that interesting? We've got a love geodetic line and a partnership angle here. Now, a couple other things I like to use with astrocartography, I like to use midpoints, see if there's anything interesting that stands out. And I teach all of this in my certification course. So if you want to go more in depth and learn all of this from me, you can learn this live from me in my certification. I also offer two other courses on astrocartography and relocation astrology. They're more self-paced, go at your own speed, no live component. That's the astro mapping for beginners and the relocation astrology course program. You can find all of those on my website. But anyway, I just want to see if there's any really striking midpoints here. These very pleasant midpoints. Venus moon on the ascendant, sun south node, descendant midpoint, Venus series. I love those. Very nice. Let's see if she has any aspects. I should also mention that I just launched my relocation astrology certification. So if you want to learn from me live, get certified, get tested, and become one of my astrocartography readers, be sure to hit the link down below in the description and sign up before June 9th. Doors close June 9th until January of 2025. So if you want to get certified and learn how to look at the places to unlock the story, the potential within your birth chart, within the world, the whole entire world, do be sure to get signed up now because doors will be closing for the rest of the year. So sign up now before June 9th. The price goes up June 1st. So if you want the early bird discount for the founders sale, the founders investment of this course, be sure to get signed up before June 1st and the price goes up. I'm excited to connect with you and work with you live in the live calls if your intuition feels it's a fit. All right, let's get back into the video. We got Venus squaring the ascendant, can be a bit indulgent, a bit lazy. Neptune trining the ascendant, very peaceful healing place for her, very spiritual place. Jupiter trining the descendant. Oh, I love this for relationships. Uranus trining the ascendant. Stepping into new energy. It's, refreshing, inspiring. Shakeups, changes that are very supportive for her. Maybe a change of a look, a change of something within her sense of self. So a lot of details we can look at, a lot of things. We can also look at timing. We can also see, the timing of places for her, looking at the map here. So we can see her transits, her progressions, cyclocartography, all of which I teach in my course. So that's another really cool thing that we can do as an additional layer to this mapping software. Let's look at the US though for her. North America, USA. And this is where things get really interesting. Now, this is a cluster of lines. We've got the local space lines over here. I'm going to take those off just so we can see things a little clearly. And look at this. She's got the Mars ascendant line again, except this time it's not on the East Coast, it's on the West Coast. I don't believe she lives on the West Coast full time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Swifties, but let me know. But she does have, look at this. She has all of these lines on the East Coast. What an important part of the world for her. Anytime we have a place with a lot of lines like this, it's a very karmic place, a very soul-led place. A lot of stuff here on the East Coast. And, she bought a house in Rhode Island. She lived in New York on Cornelia Street for a long time. Let's take a look at this, though. That's really interesting. Look at that sun ascendant line. Where is it going through? Kansas City. Travis Kelce. This this makes me think that she's a Capricorn rising. The map coupled with the transits, coupled with the midheaven, coupled with the zodiac releasing. I mean, this sun on the ascendant, what a happy line. What a place of joy. What a place of exposure, of being seen, of, I call this a self-development line, but it's a personal development line. It's such a line of shining, of being in your authenticity and your authentic self. And yeah, she's got Jupiter Chiron, Moon Chiron, can be a place of wounds, can be a place of getting hurt, can be a place of sensitivity or old things coming up. The thing is, we don't know how she feels here. So we really don't know unless we spoke with her. And Taylor Swift, if you'd like to have a private consultation with me, I'm happy to work with you. My website is always open. But we have a Jupiter Chiron here too, so very spiritual, but Chiron is triggering, it is wounding, it's sensitive, it is a very beautiful place for healing, but I am a little bit cautious about those parents. Curious to hear from her. Maybe we'll get some stories about Kansas City in the future, about something, maybe an album or I hope she ends up with Travis Kelce, though. I really do. I think that he is a perfect match for her personally. I think they would be really great long term together, but that's just my personal opinion. But look at all these lines. I mean, the Saturn rising line going through Rhode Island and Hyannis, where she had that lovely, summer with Connor Kennedy and Hyannisport. I mean, this is passion. Mars, Venus on the Perrin, within orb of Hyannisport and Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. I mean, this is passion. This is a sense of aliveness. This is very sexual in energy. Really good for like a cultural experience, arts, beauty, design, fashion. I love all that for this. And look at this also Saturn rising. I can't help but wonder. Interesting. I can't help but wonder if she thought about time a lot here, thought about responsibilities, obligations, growing old. What happens when you grow old, thinking about time. She seems to think about time a lot based on her documentary and things that she's written about in songs, like the fear of becoming irrelevant, the fear of her age and not being successful because of her age and her beauty and her looks and people getting bored of her. It's a very Capricornian thing to think about. Saturn, right? Saturn on the ascendant thinks about those things. And she has Saturn on the ascendant with being a Capricorn rising, if this chart is correct, if this time is correct. And I can't help but wonder if she was in Rhode Island and Hyannisport, if, thinking about time, thinking about responsibilities, obligations, growing old was something that consumed her thoughts. I know she wrote a song about the house that she had and about this old woman who used to live in this house. She does have a nice writing, Mercury's on the ascendant, love that for writing. And she does have a lot of relationship lines on the East Coast, which I believe Travis Kelce was born in Ohio. So if he ends up being her spouse, her committed relationship, committed partner, which fifth house is dating, seventh house is committed partner and spouse. But if she does end up being with him, he's from Ohio and very close to all these descendant lines. I wouldn't be surprised if her partner in life comes from the East Coast, like born and raised, or was born in this area on these descendant lines, because the descendant lines rule relationship points. Um, Okay, so I believe that's all I wanted to talk about. The Mars on the ascendant can be hit or miss, especially if Mars is a malefic, which I believe for her it is. I wonder if she doesn't like the West Coast or doesn't like LA and California as much as she likes the East Coast. But in terms of midpoints, I mean, she's got a lot of career midpoints out in the West Coast, of course, with the music industry being very successful. I can see there's a lot of career midpoints there, but there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to see. There's a lot we can add and consider when we're looking at astrocartography. But this is her astro map. I'm convinced she's a Capricorn rising. Now, I could be wrong. I have, been wrong about celebrity times before, I'm sure. We never really know someone's chart. unless we personally know them. I'm all for accuracy. I'm all for detail and data. My Mercury's in Gemini. I want the details. And unfortunately, when it comes to public figures and historical people and celebrities, we really don't know. So if you are part of Taylor Swift's team, feel free to get in touch with me at helena@helenawoods.com. I'd love to have a reading with you and go over Taylor Swift's chart with her correct birth time. Or if you're a historian, if you are an author and you've written a biography on Taylor Swift, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to work with you. With all that said, a lot to unpack here, but I think that's enough for this video. Maybe I'll make a follow-up with more additional details, but I wanted this to be a little introduction on Taylor Swift so you guys can see how to read astro maps and also to start a debate on what her birth time actually is. Is she a Capricorn rising or is she a Scorpio rising? Who knows?
All right, I hope you enjoyed today's video on Taylor Swift's astrocartography. Be sure to let me know down below what you think her rising sign, what birth time. Is she Capricorn rising? Is she Scorpio rising? And let us know what celebrities or public figures you'd like to see next in an upcoming video. Be sure to check out my podcast, my courses, my astrocartography courses if you want to learn more. And be sure to sign up to my astrocartography email list so you get all my tips, all my free information, resources, advice, and my free astrocartography guide and cheat sheet so that you can understand what your own astrocartography map says. Hope you have a magical day and happy astro travels. Bye.